One Wrangler owner spent $15,000 on maintenance. Another spent $7,000. And the third, just $3,000. Same mileage, shockingly similar results. The difference was simple: dealer, local mechanic, or DIY. We compared all three over 100,000 miles, and the winner wasn't even close. So here's how three identical Wranglers told three completely different stories. Ask 10 Wrangler owners where you should get your Jeep serviced, and you'll probably get 10 different answers. Somebody swears by the dealer. Factory scan tool, factory software, every recall caught the day it drops. Somebody else swears by their local mechanic. Same job, half the price, none of the upsell. And somebody else swears they haven't paid a shop a dime in years, and their Jeep runs better than either of the other two guys combined. Everybody's convinced they're right. So instead of arguing about it, we compared it. 4 questions, same 4 for every Jeep. Did it get the service it actually needed? What did that service actually cost? How good was the diagnostic setup behind it? And did the approach cut long-term risk or add to it? Keep those in mind. Everything else is detail. We pulled every invoice, every fluid change, every recall visit, every part swap, and every unscheduled repair across all 3 Jeeps. Not every category moved the needle. The ones that did are the ones we're covering. Going in, we all figured the dealer truck was the runaway winner. Factory-trained techs, factory Y-Tech scan tool. Every technical service bulletin caught automatically. Every recall handled the same day it dropped. If anyone was going to nail this Jeep down to the last torque spec, it was going to be this shop. And in a lot of ways, they did. Full factory procedures, OEM parts, current software, the works. But what surprised us wasn't that the dealer cost more. It was where that extra cost was actually coming from. The 8-speed ZF automatic is the single most argued part of this Jeep. Jeep's manual leans on the phrase "fill for life," and that's one of the more expensive ideas an owner can take at face value. It means the fluid was designed to survive the warranty period under lab conditions, not necessarily the way your specific Jeep gets driven. That gap between what the manual implies and what the trans actually needs is exactly where the 3 shops started pulling apart. The dealer treated borderline use as severe duty by default. Trans service at 40,000 miles, whether this Wrangler was crawling Moab every weekend or just doing Costco runs. Same story on the front and rear diffs. Serviced at 30,000 miles, well before this specific Jeep needed it. There's real logic behind that call. A dealer touches thousands of Wranglers and never tracks any of them personally, so defaulting to the safer interval protects the owner they'll never meet, who really is on 37-inch tires and hitting trails every weekend. It's a defensible policy. It's just not a policy built around this particular Jeep. Then there were the oil changes. $150 a pop with full synthetic and a Mopar filter. Every 7,000 miles like clockwork. Across 100,000 miles, that alone was over $2,000 just for oil service. The dealer also pushed a fluid flush package every visit. Coolant flush at 60,000 miles. Brake fluid exchange at 40,000. Fuel induction service at 45,000. Cabin filter every oil change at $40 each. None of it was wrong. Most of it was clean work. Almost none of it was strictly necessary yet. The way one longtime Wrangler tech put it, the dealer wasn't stealing from anyone. It was selling insurance against a version of this Jeep that didn't exist. A worst-case Wrangler that lived on the trail every weekend and never came home clean. Where the dealer really earned its reputation was the diagnostic side. Full factory scan tool, every TSB caught without anyone having to ask, and every recall handled the moment it landed. The manual clutch fire recall on 2018 through 2023 Wranglers. The track bar bracket weld recall on 2018 and 2019 models. The instrument cluster short circuit recall covering 2018 through 2024. Software flashes updated the day they dropped. That's not a small thing. Some of those updates catch problems a good local shop physically can't see coming until Jeep publishes them. The one unscheduled repair over 100,000 miles was the Pentastar oil cooler housing. The plastic factory unit cracks. It's not an if, it's a when. The dealer caught the seep early, quoted $1,200, and swapped it out. Job done. Here's the kicker though. They put the same plastic housing back in. Same part that failed the first time, now on the clock again. When we added up the total invoice pile at the end, This Jeep had cost roughly $15,000 in service over 100,000 miles. Highest cost of the three, and a real question hanging over it. How much of that thoroughness did this specific Jeep actually need? Quick pause. If you want your Jeep to hit 500,000 miles without wasting thousands on unnecessary repairs, grab my 500,000-mile Jeep blueprint. It tells you exactly what to maintain, when to do it, and what to avoid. Links in the description below. Then we opened the local shop file, and the whole comparison flipped. Instead of defaulting to severe duty, the local shop asked whether this Jeep actually qualified for it first. Service history, a real look at the fluid, and a straight conversation with the owner about how the Jeep got driven. It didn't qualify. Regular commute, 1 weekend trail run a month, nothing that matched Jeep's severe duty definition. Trans service landed at 60,000 miles. The interval that matched how the Jeep was actually getting driven, not the worst case assumption about a stranger. Here's what that looked like in practice. Drop the fluid, check the color against a fresh sample, smell it. A burnt edge tells you something color alone won't. Run a magnet through the drain. A little clutch dust is normal. Chunks of metal aren't. Then ask the owner 3 straight questions about towing, trail use, and climate. None of that takes long. None of it costs much. But it's the difference between a decision built on assumptions and a decision built on what's actually there. Same story on the diffs. Serviced at 50,000 miles once an inspection said the fluid was still doing its job, instead of swapping it on the calendar alone. Oil changes ran $70 at the local shop with the same synthetic and a Wix filter. That alone saved over $1,000 across 100,000 miles without changing a single outcome. On the front end, the local shop caught something the dealer had marked within spec twice. The passenger side lower ball joint was starting to develop play, and on a Wrangler, that's the first domino for death wobble. If you don't know what death wobble is, it's the violent shake that hits a solid front axle Jeep when the steering geometry loses its mind at highway speed. It's been serious enough that Stellantis got hit with a class action lawsuit, Reynolds versus FCA, and settled by extending the front steering damper warranty to 8 years and 90,000 miles for 2018 through 2020 Wranglers. Catching a bad ball joint before it triggers a wobble is worth real money, and the dealer's checklist missed it twice while the local shop caught it on a routine visit. The local shop also handled the oil cooler housing job for $800. Same repair the dealer charged $1,200 for. And unlike the dealer, they mentioned the aluminum aftermarket option and gave the owner the choice. He picked OEM this time, but at least the conversation happened. The diagnostic gap turned out to be smaller than we expected too. A pro-grade aftermarket scanner caught nearly everything the dealer's factory tool did, with a small lag on the newest bulletins that hadn't hit the aftermarket databases yet. Total spend at the local shop over 100,000 miles landed around $7,000, less than half the dealer cost. Same real-world outcome. The local shop was now leading, and that's when the driveway truck walked in and made us question everything. The biggest surprise on this test wasn't that the driveway was the cheapest option. Everybody expects that going in. On the transmission, the driveway owner didn't just wait longer, he used a completely different strategy. A staged drain and fill starting at 30,000 miles, 4 quarts at a time, every 15,000 miles, using the Mopar-approved ZF 8-speed fluid, not generic ATF plus 4. By the third round, most of the old fluid had rotated out gradually without ever shocking a transmission with one giant flush. It's not a shortcut. It's arguably more careful than either of the other two approaches. It just takes more driveway visits to get there. Oil changes cost him $35 a pop in parts. Same full synthetic the dealer used. Same Mopar filter part number. Every 7,000 miles, right? On schedule. And he logged every one of them in a spiral notebook in the glove box. Over 100,000 miles, that came to about $400 in oil versus the dealer's $2,000 for the same job. For diagnostics, this owner ran JScan on a smartphone through a $25 OBD2 adapter. We honestly figured this comparison ended right there. A watered-down version of the Pro Tools, good enough for basic codes and not much else. Instead, the JScan setup kept following the dealer's factory Y-Tech scanner almost step for step. Same codes, same live data, same service resets after a fluid change. Even the electronic parking brake service mode, which is the one thing that traps most driveway mechanics on modern Wranglers, was right there on the phone. That result alone surprised us more than anything else on this whole test. But not everything. There's a structural ceiling on driveway work. Full alignment never happened at home over 100,000 miles because no home garage has the rack. Every couple years, he paid a shop $100 to check it. The software flashes for the newest recalls still needed a dealer trip, and he did the manual clutch recall visit for free because it was covered. The Pentastar oil cooler housing got done in the driveway too, but the owner didn't stop at the OEM plastic replacement like the dealer did. He went straight to the aluminum aftermarket unit from Dorman. The plastic housing's whole problem is that it cracks from heat cycles. The aluminum unit ends that problem forever. Under $300 in parts one Saturday morning, and the #1 Pentastar leak was off the table for good. The dealer never even offered that upgrade. And the truly wild part is what the driveway did with the front end. Ball joints, tie rods, track bar, all replaced at 70,000 miles with heavy-duty aftermarket parts before anything ever went bad. He greased every fitting, every oil change. He kept his tie rod adjustments in check with a torque wrench. Brake pads and rotors got done at his own pace with quality parts for half the shop rate. He even tackled the transfer case fluid every 30,000 miles when the manual said to just inspect it, because he'd read enough forum horror stories to know better. Total driveway spend over 100,000 miles came in right around $3,000. Not everything a shop can do got done, but way more of it than anyone at the table figured going in. So which one actually wins the whole comparison? 3 Jeeps, 3 philosophies, 1 clear winner. The dealer won on completeness. Every box checked, every recall handled the day it dropped, the highest cost of the 3, and a real safety margin built into every interval. The local shop won on judgment. Nearly identical outcomes to the dealer at less than half the total cost, because decisions were made from the Jeep in front of them instead of a worst-case stranger. The driveway won on value. Lowest cost by a huge margin, and closer to shop-level outcomes than anyone expected walking in. But only one wins the whole comparison. Looking at the invoices alone, you'd reach one conclusion. Looking at what the Jeep actually needed, you reach a very different one. The dealer earned its reputation honestly, but a real chunk of that $15,000 bought protection this specific Jeep hadn't earned yet. The driveway shocked everyone at the table, but a lift, a scanner, and an alignment rack still matter for the things a home garage physically can't do. The local shop is the winner. Not because it was cheap for the sake of being cheap, because it made the same quality of decision the dealer made, based on the actual Jeep in front of it, at a cost the dealer never got close to matching. It caught the ball joint that could have started a death wobble spiral. It offered the aluminum housing option before the plastic one cracked twice. It read the fluid before it swapped it, and it swapped it only when the fluid said it was time. The biggest lesson wasn't that one shop was better than another. It was that maintenance philosophy mattered way more than where the Jeep got serviced. A dealer that treats every Wrangler like it lives on 37s wastes your money. A local shop that reads the Jeep in front of it saves you thousands. A driveway owner who actually knows the platform can close most of that gap by himself, and the ones who really study this stuff can close almost all of it. So, what do you think? Would you trust the dealer, stick with a local mechanic, or do the work yourself? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, click the video on your screen, and I'll see you in the next one.